What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports podcast. Week one, a great week one. How y'all doing? What's going on, fellas?
Sir, NFL season, man. What a way to kick off.
Yes, definitely a way to kick off. I mean, we started off with spit heard around the world in a divisional matchup. Ended with another divisional matchup. Obviously, that ended closely. We had multiple good division matchups. With the Chiefs as well, going against the Chargers. Obviously, the Falcons and the Bucks had a close game as well. Lions and the Packers. Probably one of the best games or starts to a season following the trade of Micah Parsons. What did you guys think of the first week? What were some of y'all's takeaways?
I mean, interesting week. You try not to overreact to some things, but like you said, great games. Might get into it later, but obviously the game of the week, Ravens versus Bills. What a comeback by Josh Allen. That was a good game, but overall, I mean, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy that we back. Just can't wait to see some more football, man.
Yeah, I'm in the same way. Like outside of, maybe the Giants, the Dolphins, the Panthers, outside of those three teams, I mean, you're not feeling too horrible about what happened week one. You know what I mean? I mean, Houston might feel bad because that offense looks bad. We'll get to that. But yeah, close games and most of them. I know CeeDee Lamb's still sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very enjoyable weekend throughout. And last night's game kind of topped it off with how, the Vikings kind of stormed back, with JJ McCarthy. So
yeah,
or Monday night.
Definitely a lot of comebacks. I mean, but we can go ahead and get into the Bills comeback. Obviously, the Ravens looked unstoppable throughout the entire game. We're up 40-25. Bills came back with a couple touchdowns. Obviously, hit a 2-point conversion, and then ultimately, Derrick Henry made a fumble. What did you guys think of the game? Obviously, there's been a lot of reaction talking about, them always blowing leads and stuff like that. Like, how do you guys feel about all the conversation around it?
I mean, I get it. I understand the conversation, but I feel like for those two teams in particular, like, that's one of them games where it's like, okay, I feel like the Ravens, you have time to, make amends to whatever just happened. You just played a good Buffalo team. Obviously, you don't want that to happen as far as them coming back, but they're not a team that I feel like, well, this just defined their season. I said this last week when I picked the Bills, but I said this last week that I felt like this wasn't a game that either one of the team could. I mean, if they lost, it don't matter too much to me in general, because you have the time to be able to fix your issues, whatever the issues may be. I mean, you might not be able to fix some of these coaching blunders because they seem to keep popping up. But as far as the team goes, I feel like it sucks, obviously, but it's week one. You try not to overreact, but they're not a bad team to where it's like, okay, this is going to define your season. I see what you about to do this season. So you can't hang your hat on it. Had Derrick Henry not fumbled, game probably over. You don't necessarily feel like Derrick Henry gonna ever cost you a game, so it happens.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I mean, I'm not overreacting to it at all. Of course, the Ravens were all our picks to, get to the Super Bowl, if not win it. So it is a bad look though, just overall, and not so much on Lamar. I think it's more on the play calling that happened down the stretch. And you got to shine that light on John Harbaugh, because this has become a pattern. Like when you're up in games, whether it's you, whether it's your offense coordinator, whoever, it is, and you had a couple now, it just looks different. You call it a little tight. You start being conservative when you're not really a conservative type of team, especially like, what you're asking Lamar to do. It is a tough look. I'm not going to lie. And it's something that you will keep seeing repeat itself. And I get it's not as easy as, just hand the ball off to Derrick Henry and you'll be all right. Because he did end up fumbling. But it just looked, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain how tight everything got in that fourth quarter and how it ended up. But I mean, credit to Josh too for making. I mean, they scored on the fourth down. If they don't do that, the game is also over. So you had to make clutch plays on that side as well, and they did. Yeah, on a tip pass at that. Yes. Mm-hmm. So you had to get a little lucky there, and it happened. So shout out to them.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it will define their season, but it is something that I've kind of mentioned in the past. Obviously, we've all talked about the coaching, but also for both teams in terms of not necessarily having, and it was a little different for the Bills this season or the first game with Joey Bosa, and we'll see how that goes for the remainder of the season, but not necessarily having that pass rusher. We'll see the same thing with, if Mike Green is able to develop as a rookie with the Ravens. But I think that kind of showed up. Obviously, it is two all-time great quarterbacks, all-time great running back in Derrick Henry, and it was they're hard to stop, but it would help. Obviously, we've seen in the past Kansas City has had, when they played and had those opportunities, it has been Chris Jones making those plays. It has been somebody on the defensive side making the play. So I just think that is going to be something that might show up later on in the season. Hopefully, it doesn't. Obviously, like I said, Joey Bosa staying healthy. Mike Green, or if they're able to acquire a different pass rusher or something like that.
Yeah, it is tough. At the same time, though, Josh Allen don't really take sacks. I know you push him off the spot. The rusher can do that, but he torched them for 400 yards. That is you got to have somebody to kind of like fight back on that defense. And we saw, the Ravens defense kind of start slow last season, so maybe that's the thing there. But Jair.
And it takes a lot, it took a lot for them to score. It took a lot for them to come back. I mean, obviously, when you're up 40-25, everybody thought it was over. Bills fans thought it was over. The Bills probably damn near thought it was over, but it was, the big play with James Cook that kind of let him down the field, made him give him a little bit of hope, and then obviously the fumble. But I don't know. There needs to be a defensive player, I think, on the line for both of those guys. And Ed Oliver played a great game as well. Obviously, the guy that forced the fumble as well. So that needs to be more consistent for both teams. So I do think that ends up showing up. But speaking of Kansas City, obviously they had a tough loss to the Chargers and in the Eagles. Obviously, they're the team that they lost to in the Super Bowl. Had a pretty great game as well. How'd you guys feel? Obviously, I don't really care about the spit and shit. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think y'all do either. So I don't think we need to get into it. But between the two games, how'd you guys feel about obviously the Eagles continuing on what they did on Banner Night, and the Chiefs kind of looking similar to what they looked like the last time we saw them?
I feel like as far as the Eagles and Cowboys game, I think that was a little bit of the both teams not, playing in the preseason at all. And I mean, both offenses came out firing. And this, you see, obviously I think we talked about, Cass mentioned it a little bit, but CD did have the drops in the second half. But in the second half, both defenses, settled in a little bit. And that's a little bit with the unknown as far as, Cowboys having a whole new coaching regime in general. But I mean, they look to be better than most people probably expected. I knew it was going to be a close game, division game. You can't just assume that people going to get blown out of division game, especially when it comes to NFC East. All our games usually be close anyway, so I'm not really concerned about what's going on there. I mean, like you just said about Jalen Carter. I mean, he did what he did, whatever. That's just crazy. But I mean, it is what it is.
It's what it is.
It's over now. It's over, done with. So. And then as far as the Chiefs, again, like I just said earlier, you don't want to go overreact, but that was a good ass win by the Chargers. I mean, that was a good ass win by the Chargers to play on to be basically, even though you technically home, you were on the road because it's a neutral site, and to go in there and actually dominate the way they look, that was good to see. And against an opponent that basically has been dominating for the past 4 or 5 years in general. So that's good to see by the Chargers, but I mean, you got to be a little concerned with the Colts. I mean, you got to be a little concerned with the Chiefs because I mean, you just lost 2 of your best receivers. I mean, they saying Worthy is day to day, but I mean, to hear that it dislocated, he had a minor tear. I mean, I don't know what that. I guess it's day to day. I ain't no doctor, but that's kind of concerning. And you already have a receiver that's out for 6 weeks for the suspension. This is a tough stretch for them. This is a tough ass stretch for them to start to be on this run without actual receivers and having Mahomes trying to go out there and be Superman every game. I mean, he can do it, but do you really think it's gonna work again? You know what I'm saying? But good game by the Chargers. Chief must win.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that for sure. No, I'm with you on that, especially with the Eagles Cowboys game. Division game kind of went how a division game should. I know like Dak played well. Like I said, CD still sick, but you kind of like what you saw out of, for both sides. So it's hard to be like too mad about that game just overall if you're the Cowboys. The Chiefs game, on the other hand, the real tough part is even with these receiver injuries, you don't have a run game to lean on still. You have Hunt back there, you have Pacheco who's healthy. And it's like you thought Pacheco would make a little bit more of an impact. I understand that, the Chargers defense is pretty good there, but when Pat Mahomes is your leading rusher, that's never a good sign, especially when you don't have very big receivers there. With the Worthy injury, I think that's huge. And even if he does come back, he's going to wear a brace or whatever, sure. But he's still $170, and he literally everybody on the defensive side is bigger than him. So it's how sustainable is that, especially with how you're going to use him? You're using him in screen game. When you're in the screen game, linemen can get their hands on him. You know what I mean? Like anybody can really get their hands on it. I think it can get a little dangerous there. We'll see who kind of steps up. Maybe they lean. If Juju Smith-Schuster is your answer, then I don't know how much faith you got, honestly, in that group. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But yeah, that's kind of my takeaway. The Chiefs might be in a little bit of trouble. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon like that. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, he had like 20 damn targets. Sure, you got no choice. You don't get fed the ball like that. But yeah, hey, QJ stepped up though. Big game for QJ. Big game for him.
And big game for Greg Roman as well. Obviously a lot of people have talked about him over the years for them as well as the Ravens, but, excellent game that they had. Obviously a lot of plays made by QJ, a lot of plays made by Justin Herbert, especially the big one at the end where, Chris Jones lost contain and, had them arguing and stuff like that. But, the Eagles, I think, had a great game as well. Defensively at first, obviously it was a little shaky, quarterback position is very, very shaky. Hey, Dory Jackson, you might need to be on the hot seat watch, no lie.
Hey, man.
But, I think he'll bounce back. And, we'll see. Obviously, the Eagles have been looking at corners and stuff like that. So, the Cowboys on the same side, obviously they worked out Jadeveon Clowney. I thought their D-line looked good. I thought, once again, we kind of talked about it. Obviously, I picked them to upset the Eagles to start the season. But I did think that they looked better than what people thought they were going to be. They got to get right with, obviously, CD, I'm not worried about that. Obviously, that just happens from time to time. But I do think that George Pickens needs to be a little bit more a part of the offense. Because obviously it was a lot of CD, and it's a big game. It's a rivalry game. You kind of need to go what you need, kind of need to go what you know. Yeah. But, and CD was cooking, obviously. But I think that George Pickens just getting a little bit more targets there would have been nice. But I do think Tyquan Thornton going to the Chiefs side could be a good player for him. I thought he was he looked good with the Patriots, but then he would always get hurt, and then he obviously fell out of favor. But I do think that he was getting open.
He was.
But, we'll see.
Yeah. Pat Mahomes, he overshot it. He overshot it a few times there, though.
He got him once.
He got him once, yeah. Yeah.
They say that Worthy speed different. That's why.
Oh, no.
That's what they say. They say that Worthy speed different.
Thornton be moving. But, as you mentioned, the Chiefs are definitely in what's must win, as close as it can be for a team that of their caliber. So let's go ahead and get into the hot seat watch.
All right, so last week clearly hot seat the Dolphins, trash as hell. I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
you can talk about the Colts offense. That's cool, Sha. I'll let you have that because. You can do a victory lap on that. But god damn, man, the Dolphins offense is terrible, man. I don't know. And like that video you put in our group chat earlier, it's just like every time Mike McDaniels talk, he just doesn't seem like he gets it. Like he just seemed like he just not. I don't know if that's him being funny or that's just him in general, but it just seems like there's a disconnect between what he's doing versus what's going on. It feels like he's literally should be just an offensive coordinator in the background, talking at minimum, play calling. He doesn't need to be a head coach. So I mean, that's just how I feel. That's how I look at it. That offense, it was just no connect there that entire time. So again, they own it for the rest of the season. So that's that.
With that Dolphins one, man, because look, it's so bad over there, man. And I was gonna add them to the hot seat today, but I'm not even going. It's no point. But look, the Dolphins have New England and then Buffalo on Thursday night. So short turnaround to that Buffalo game. If they lose this game on Sunday to New England and get dog walked on Thursday against Buffalo, which they probably will, because at Buffalo as well. Calling it right now, he's out of there. You get the longer weekend, he's out of there. Mike is gone. And I think they pulled the plug. I'm going to call it right now. That's my shot.
I really don't. I think you can probably. I really don't think he's going to get fired at all this season. Like not in season.
All right.
I think, to your point, Ian, it's a little tough to say because obviously last year they were competitive in the past couple of years with him. They've been a playoff team, even with Tua's injury last year. The Colts game was just, Lou Anarumo was in his bag.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's Mike McDaniel or if that's Tua. And I'm more willing to say that it's Tua than it's Mike McDaniel.
Hey, that's gonna go straight into my hot seat.
I don't. That's why I can't really stand behind, because if Mike McDaniel goes, like, I don't think, maybe it'll look better. I don't know. Maybe the morale will get up. I don't know. It seems like he's a good guy. But I think that if he goes, Tua goes really down bad, in my opinion. Because Xavier Howard not said, but, or actually, yeah, he did. Came out and said it. Look, once Tua gets past his first read, he panics.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what the Colts were doing. So, a lot of dropping linemen back. Obviously, a lineman got an interception in the game. Hey, he was in my top 10. But, obviously they were doing a lot of that. They were mixing up coverages. They ran just about every single coverage that you could possibly run. So, I just think that, I don't know. I think it was more just a tough first game, in terms of what now defensively. I don't know. I don't know what they had going on over there. That was supposed to be, the D line was supposed to be some, but it didn't really do anything. Yep. The corners were hurt, so that's what can you do? But they also scored on every drive, and I don't,
that's so bad.
I don't know about that. So I said on my hot seat watch, both organizations were on the hot seat watch. So you kind of, like, as I mentioned, like, whoever came out of it, I didn't expect this. I don't think anybody expected this. Regardless of who won.
Not at all.
But coming out like this, it does make it. It makes it look a little rough, but I do think that they can kind of get it together. But, there's going to be a lot of questions about it. Like you mentioned already, Chris, like you mentioned already, Cass, it's already been talked about a lot in the media. They got to get right. Tyreek Hill got to get right, too, because, he could be staring a suspension down the road here in a couple games if they, obviously there's been some stuff that's come out about him. So they said the NFL's investigating it. So, that could also be something that derails the season. And, as I mentioned about the Ravens and the Bills, if you want to start talking about pass rushers, you got Jalen Phillips there, you got Bradley Chubb. If that's a team that, ends up kind of cratering. So we'll see.
But yeah, like you said, it's that coach and quarterback tandem. So that's what I got on my hot seat watch, man. Brian Daboll and Russell Wilson. What the fuck are they doing over there, man? I watched the game, and to be honest, Washington did not play that good at all. They did not play good at all. And I don't know what the fuck that offense was doing. And in my opinion, it's like, Brian Daboll, like, you coaching for your job at this point. Somebody said it, and before we got on the podcast, because I was thinking this. If I was him, I'll just throw it. If you don't feel like you want to put your rookie in, man, put Jamie Wilson in. Now, offense gonna go. He might throw some picks. He might have some egregious turnovers, but he's gonna throw the ball. He's gonna get the ball down deep or whatever, and move the chains at least. Like that offense was stale. It was bad, and the time they did get down to the red zone, they could not score. Russell was a fumble. They couldn't get the plays in and whatnot. It just didn't look good. And it's just like, you're supposed to be a veteran quarterback, and you're supposed to be, quote unquote, a guru at quarterbacking or whatever you want to call it. So that was a bad performance. I mean, now you're going up against another division opponent in the Cowboys. And like we just said, the Cowboys look much better than what we thought, what some people thought they would look. So you got another opportunity here, and they throwing everything at the wall. They ain't got nothing to lose. They got a new coaching regime. They're not coaching for their lives in general. So, Brian Dale, you on a hot seat. And then the fact that you came out and quote unquote said you don't know who's playing. They came back to say, nah, that is like, are you scared or what? Just say it. You don't. He played bad. He played bad.
And I think that I don't know. Once again, I don't know if I want to blame Dave. Well, actually, I don't know if I want to blame Dayball, but if you do want to look at Daniel Jones over there in Indy,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it could be one or the other. We've been saying Russ has not been looking good since he went to Denver, and every team he's been on, he hasn't been looking good. But like you just said, Shai, even though it's one game, Daniel Jones went to another team and looked way different than he looked under your tenure. So it's on you at this point. Like, you're the man behind the horse, or whatever you want to call it. You need to make a decision. And in my opinion, you should have just made a decision right then and there when you said whenever you said. You might have misspoke, but I don't know, man. So Dayball, Russ, hot seat.
And Russ being his starting position being questioned in week 2 already, you got to start thinking like how many other teams are going to be willing to take Russell Wilson and what his future career starts to look like as well.
I'm with you on that, Chris. That game was bad, man, and you hate to see because the run game could never get going because you fell behind the 8-ball immediately. But still, that's another game where Russell Wilson was the leading rusher. That's never good. Never, ever good. So, I mean, we'll kind of see because it's not like the Commanders, were just a juggernaut on offense.
It was 14-6 in the fourth quarter.
And you just could not get the ball movement at all. Is it a I don't know. Is it all on Russ? I don't know. I mean, Dayball definitely got a little bit on it. So I'm with you on Dayball being on the hot seat for sure. Because that offense just looked bad. Just run game, pass game, all of that. And I like Washington defense, but not that they're not like that. I don't think. So I'm with you on that one. So last week for me, my hot seat was of course Kyle Shanahan. And honestly, I mean, they got the win. So that's what matters, right? Everybody knows that. But at what cost? You got George Kittle out for the next 4 games. You got Brock Purdy out for multiple games, probably. You had the little whatever was going on with Christian McCaffrey the last couple of days of practice, and he was able to go. But now you're looking at him like, okay, now we need you to be this guy, especially while, we're still dealing with these ailments. And it's kind of just a carryover from last season. It's the same thing we saw last season from the 49ers. Everybody's getting fucking injured. Juwan Jennings is back injured again, too. He's nicked up or whatever. This is bad. You know what I mean? And that might, I'm not saying that, it might help him keep his job with all these injuries, but at the same time, it's not a good look when you keep having to go through this. So we'll kind of see what the 49ers can do going forward. But this week, my hot seat watch, it has to go to Houston. Houston Texans O-line. Houston Texans offense, period. Just a terrible showing against the Rams. And I thought the Rams, would win. I picked them to win, of course. And I picked Jacksonville to win that division over Houston. I didn't think, and I said it exactly. I like Houston's defense, but I didn't think that offensive line, their offense was good enough. And in game 1, it kind of proved it. We'll see if they can come up from that. But from my preseason kind of view on this team, it got instantly proved in week 1. So I have to put them on the hot seat because this is the problem. You can't move the ball. Your leading receiver had 30 32 yards. Nico Collins was a no-show pretty much. You couldn't it's and CJ holds the ball too long a little bit. It's the overall design of what you're trying to do on offense, what you're trying to and overall design the routes. I just don't like it. I know some new offensive coordinator first game. I get all that as well, but it looks bad over there in Houston. And then you got a Monday night game against the Tampa team who we all think is good. And that's a huge game. So I'm putting that Houston offense in total, especially that offensive line, on the hot seat this week. Gotta see more if you're want to make noise in this division.
With that being said, I'm gonna put the entire AFC West instead of the Chiefs, or outside of the Chiefs. So the Chargers, the Vegas Raiders, and the Denver Broncos on the hot seat. Kansas City Chiefs are 0-1 right now. You guys all obviously won your first game. Some had great showings. Denver, it was a little interesting there, but you did get the dub. Obviously, the Chargers, you're already 1-0 in the division as well. So Kansas City has the Eagles this week. Big game. We just saw them play in the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Eagles are not the same in the defensive backfield, but Kansas City doesn't look the same. I mean, Kansas City kind of looks the same. I mean, at least what we saw in the Super Bowl, and now they're missing another receiver. So they might be going down 0-2. Vegas, you get an opportunity to possibly go up 2-0 and get a win in the division. Chargers, you have a possibility to go up 2-0 and get be up 2-0 in the division. Mm-hmm. Broncos, I mean, you have an opportunity to beat the Colts. I mean, I don't know really what that does for you in the division, but it does keep you at 2-0. So, all on the hot seat. Obviously, definitely the Broncos offense, and as a being specific on it, needs to be on the hot seat. Obviously, not that great of a showing against the Titans, but you guys got an opportunity. Who's going to take advantage of it? You guys are all on the hot seat.
I like it. I did not like what I saw from the Broncos on Sunday. So I'm definitely looking for more there. They got the defense, I get that, but it was some questionable decisions in that game from both sides, really, from Tennessee and from Brian Callahan and Sean Payton. So I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, you don't usually say, somebody can take a stranglehold, but the Chargers win 2-0 in the division.
It's a good start.
Starts looking interesting.
It's a good start. Great start.
And the Broncos, obviously, that's a sneaky big game in the season, because obviously those are two teams that were also fighting for the wild card last year. Obviously, that was also when kind of one of the inflection points for the Colts last season, but when Jonathan Taylor dropped that ball at the goal line. But the Broncos, if you do start to fall behind, is that, what do we start to talk about with Bo Nix there? So, it's interesting for all of them. And then obviously the Chargers and Raiders are getting to play each other. So that's going to be an interesting game. And, obviously we'll get into that in the game picks here. So, let's go ahead and get into that, rough week. But some teams that are actually, rough week, but,
You're not mad. You're not mad.
We'll make it up.
Yeah, so week 1, our scores out of the 6 game, Chris, you got 4 out of the 6 right. The only 2 that you didn't get right, of course, were Houston.
Because he fumbled, man. He fumbled.
It's Houston and Detroit, which we didn't touch on that Detroit Green Bay game too much, but Green Bay looks, they put it on them. Shy, you had 2 out of the.
Oh.
Come on, they did. Shy, you had. Shy, you had 2 out of the 6. Kind of you mentioned throughout, but of course Minnesota and Buffalo. So you definitely came back at the end because it was looking
a goose egg.
It really should have been. It should have been. That's yeah. We're gonna get right.
And then I had 3 out of the 6. So of course I picked Baltimore. That ain't happened. I also picked Kansas City and Detroit. So new week though, still close.
Yeah, new week, and we can go ahead. We'll go ahead and get into the Green Bay Packers as we start off with Thursday Night Football. Obviously, the Washington Commanders are playing the Green Bay Packers tomorrow. Who you guys got and why?
For this one, I got Green Bay. Like we didn't mention it, but they looked good last week against the Lions. Both sides of the I'd say more their defense than their offense. Their offense was okay, but their defense was definitely great last week. But this also has everything also to do with what I saw from Washington against the Giants last week. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't like how they looked. It just something about that offense just didn't look good to me. Now Debo played good last week, and maybe that has everything to do with Terry McLaurin coming back. Didn't really play much in the didn't really practice much in training camp, and then obviously didn't play in the preseason. But that offense didn't look that good, and I don't believe in their defense. I just think the Giants played very, very bad, and they're just not a good offensive team at this point. But I think Green Bay is gonna once again show up. Michael Parsons another game on his belt, get that pass rush because he's obviously familiar with them because he's played for the Cowboys, so he's familiar with the Commanders. So I can see him getting another sack this game. Even though they try to say that sack was garbage time, but whatever. He'll probably get another sack this game.
That's some
age. I'm just saying,
that is some age.
I'm just saying, like sack. But for all those reasons, I got Green Bay coming out with a dub.
I kind of wanted to rock with Washington on this one, I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to go with the home team in Green Bay, mainly because they look more sound, like you said, Chris, and it could just be Washington, like they only played their starters in one series in the preseason, and Jaden Daniels didn't have any throws that series. He had like 4 runs and ran it in for a touchdown. It was the easiest kind of script that you could have in the preseason. No throws at all. So, and on top of Terry McLaurin, just getting back in the last week of camp. So, that could be it. And it could be a situation where Jordan Love, does some Jordan Love shit and then throws a bad pick or something. But I'm gonna go Green Bay at home this one. I liked honestly what I saw just all around. It seemed like they have a good synergy as they can get Golden involved. You still got Reed there. You still got Dobbs who got his fair share of targets still. You still got Jacobs in the backfield. So it's just a all around just good team. And I think Michael Parsons definitely plays a little bit more. I think you're able to play him a little bit more now. This being a Thursday night game, so he has a lot of time to recover for the next game. And I think that shows a lot this game.
Yeah, and the energy during that game was crazy between the crowd and the team. Obviously they probably thought they were going to have a good season anyway, but then you get Michael Parsons right before the season. It's just like another jolt of energy. And then when he did get the sack, it was an electric moment for the season. So I'm also rocking with Green Bay. I do think that Washington will have a good game. I just think, once again, they still got to get their timing right and mesh well. I do think that being in Lambeau, like I mentioned, the energy there, I think that's going to also be a big factor. So I'm rocking with Green Bay, and then also their defense looked good. As we mentioned, they did have some. We were interested to see how the corners looked, but we said that the safeties, we felt that they would be a big part of the defense, being able to move them around. Obviously, we saw being able to move around their D line with Micah, Van Ness, and Gary, also Monte Wyatt. I mean, the team's nasty. They got a lot of pieces on defense, maybe outside a corner, and then it would be interesting to see. Even though he got cooked this weekend, it would be interesting to see if Jair was there. But I do think the Packers will end up winning in a close game on Thursday. But getting into the next one, we got a lot of good games this week as well. I thought I was talking shit earlier in the week. And I thought I was going to be able to watch the Colts game before I watch y'all game, but our game at the same time, so I was like, fuck. But, getting into the next one, Jacksonville versus Cincinnati. That's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, Jacksonville had a good win in a long delay versus the Panthers. And Cincinnati had a win against the Browns. Who you guys got and why?
Yeah, had a win is an interesting statement. They should have lost. But I mean, a win's a win, so I give them that. Jacksonville, like you said, it's one of them weird games where you got a delay. So I mean, I could say that might have messed up their rhythm and timing and whatnot. But I'm gonna go with Cincinnati. I think that their offense gets back on track. Cleveland has a good defense in general, good defensive linemen, good cornerbacks. So I think that was just a tough team to play in general. So I mean, their offense did look very pedestrian at best, but I think they get back on track and have I'm not gonna say an explosion, but I think their offense will move with a little bit better fluidity in their offense, and I think they will come out with a W. Jacksonville will put up a good game. I don't think they're gonna lay down no stretch at all, but I just think it'd be a little bit too much for them. So I got Cincinnati.
I'm gonna go with Jacksonville on this one. I did like what I saw last week, but at the same time, there is a Panthers defense, and we talked about it before the season started in our previews. Like that defense still worries me. And then boom, you first game of the season, you give up 200 yards on the ground too. That's a bad look if you're the Panthers. I didn't put them on the hot seat, but all right, Everall, they kept you on. So, but I'm gonna go Jacksonville with this one. I think they kind of carry that momentum in. Still, like they're kind of easing in Travis Hunter into the mix. But I think this week you'll see a lot more out of BTJ, and you just honestly need a defense to just hold. You know what I mean? And they played well last week. How much of that was on the Panthers' offense? How much of that was them? We'll see. But they played well last week. And Cincinnati's. I mean, look, they won, but the slow starts are still.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You played your offense in 2 preseason games, and you're still starting slow. I don't know. I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna go Jacksonville with the kind of surprise here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cincinnati on this one. I just think that they will get it together. Kind of like Chris mentioned, they did go against a team. Jamar Chase has basically always said that Denzel Ward was kind of his toughest matchup. Obviously, the Bengals or the Browns kind of have had the Bengals numbers back to the Baker days, and they've always given them tough battles. So I do think that being a division opponent in week 1 is always tough. Obviously, basically every game that we saw in the division was a close one, a comeback. Everyone was basically down to the wire. So I'm not going to condemn them too much on that. And I also think that Jacksonville still has some things to figure out. Obviously, with the receivers that they do have, they should be able to figure out pretty quickly. But it's a little interesting that Trevor and Brian Thomas they haven't necessarily connected as well as Brian Thomas and Mac Jones last year. He still obviously has had big games with Trevor, but I want to see them get on track. I think that Travis Hunter, we do see his first big game, probably over 100 with a touchdown or something like that. But I think ultimately Cincinnati wins in a close game. But getting into maybe the biggest game of the week, Kansas City versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl rematch back at Arrowhead. Who you guys got and why?
Back in Arrowhead. It's going to be a close game. Another close game. I think people I understand they are missing their 2 receivers, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. Until otherwise, I understand he had a decent game last game. I mean, they lost as a team, but I think this game, our passing game is going to look a little bit better than it did last week. Hopefully get AJ and Smitty involved. But I think we're going to pull out the win. I don't think it's going to be, you got people out here saying, oh, it's going to be a blowout. It's not going to be a damn blowout. But I think we're gonna pick up the win.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, pick the Chiefs, man.
No, I'm gonna go with Philly in this one though. I kind of expressed, when we talked about earlier about the Chiefs, like, those are real concerns. Like, no BS, those are real concerns. And that defense didn't look necessarily as good either. So, I mean, we'll see. I think you will definitely have to get more out of your receivers. You will have to get more out of Saquon too, honestly. And how much is that on Dallas? I don't know, but I know he's itching to, and I think that kind of picks up this week. I think Saquon has a pretty good game here. I'm gonna go to Philly. I'm gonna go Philly on this one, and that's gonna hurt the Chiefs. But it is what it is.
I'm also going to go with Philly on this one. I think that this game is going to be very similar to how the Cowboys Eagles game started, where it was back and forth going down the field. I think both teams, obviously Kansas City is going to be desperate, obviously not to start 0-2 and Philadelphia wants to, even though they don't need the validation for the Super Bowl, definitely don't want to have the conversation about, Kansas City and stuff like that. So I do think Philadelphia wins in a close one, but I do think that we get probably another vintage Patrick Mahomes and Mahomes performance. And I think that Saquon does have a big game, which is kind of the difference in the game. So I got the Eagles in this one, but Kansas City, it's kind of it's weird saying that they're going to be 0-2. So I'm definitely a little nervous about
it. Yeah, same.
Especially being an Arrowhead.
Yeah, especially being an Arrowhead. But getting into Sunday Night Football, obviously we've got two young quarterbacks that were drafted last year.
Sir.
One coming off of a tough loss, and another coming off of a great clutch win in the end. The Atlanta Falcons versus the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football. Who you guys got and why?
It's a tough one for me. Because I feel like both. I mean, like you got the both of them, like you said, came in the same draft. Obviously, JJ didn't play last year. Penix played 4 games last year, but the Vikings defense, they gonna bring that motherfucking pressure. They gonna send that damn pressure. They gonna send heat to him all game. Brian Flores, that's his calling card. And my thing is, outside of the big explosive play that Bajan had last week, I just feel like he just wasn't involved like he should have been. I feel like he needs to be a little bit more involved, especially when you have. I mean, that's true. But I mean, y'all was running them outside zones because of Vita Vea, and that shit was not doing for y'all. But maybe this week y'all get back on track with that. JJ had an okay debut. He had a pick 6, but at least he came back from that. So I'm gonna go with the Falcons this time. I'm gonna go with the Falcons in a close win. My boy, Young Wei Koo, gonna redeem himself with a game winner. I'm telling you, he's gonna redeem himself. He's going to redeem himself. Y'all gotta believe it.
That ain't happening, bro.
He's going to redeem himself. But I do think the Falcons are gonna squeak out this one.
I wanted to pick Minnesota just for the reverse jinx. But I'm gonna go Atlanta though with this one. I like some things I saw last week. Of course, mainly defensively. I like some of the things I saw. That was a good Bucks offense. I'm sorry. I know they had some offensive lines shuffling around, but if they're able to contain the run similar to what the Falcons did last week against the Bucks, I think they should be able to hold this offense back. And I mean, I know it's Kevin O'Connell. I know he's a freaking fantastic offense coordinator. But I also like what Michael Penix showed last week, and he wasn't going deep. They didn't really have that. He didn't really have a lot of time either to go deep. But he did what he's supposed to do. He hit the short routes. He hit the check downs. He hit he got the ball in his hand quick to avoid the sacks. Used his legs a few times, and we saw the touchdown that's been going around. But also the play before that was probably even more impressive when he got out to the edge and dove for the first down. So, I mean, I like what I saw, and I kind of just got to go with it. I don't think this team wants to see 0-2, to be honest with you. So I got to go. I think they'll really fight for this one. So I got Atlanta on the road.
Obviously the Falcons did have a tough loss, and Michael Penix played. He was solid. Definitely towards the last couple drives when they needed it the most, he was at his best. But obviously the Bucks were a little shuffled around, or as you mentioned on the offensive line, and they had some injuries. So we'll see what the Falcons end up looking like. And then on the Minnesota side, obviously that was a very interesting game. JJ looked like he was on the broadcast watch. He looked like he was everything was slow for him, like or at least everything was moving too fast for him.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did rewatch, there weren't initially a lot of guys open. Then he obviously had the terrible pick 6, and if you see it on the all 22, it looks crazy. But it looks crazy. But immediately following that, going 8 of 11, getting 3 touchdowns, obviously one with his legs as well. I thought that one of the things I thought was great to see is that Kevin O'Connell and nobody on the sideline, some of the young guys or just people in general, you throw a pick. Obviously, we saw, on the other side, Ben Johnson, there were some times where people, caught him saying like, God damn it, or like, and obviously his personalities are different, but Kevin O'Connell, when he did throw that pick six, he didn't blink. And, I thought that was very good to see for a young quarterback. And he kind of took that and went on, like I said, he kind of went on a little bit of a heater. So with that being said, I've also got the Falcons winning in a close one.
Okay.
I think the Vikings get off to a hot start, and then eventually things kind of start to slow down for them. We see a big Michael Penix long touchdown, maybe a big interception as well to start the game, and then they kind of settle in with Bijan and end up winning the game with a field goal to win it. But I don't know if it's going to be good.
I don't think so.
Hey, side note, I don't see how them coaches be staying so calm. I would have been cussing up a store after I seen that pick six. I would have been cussing up a store. I don't know.
Are you talking about pick six?
Yeah, I'm saying what Shad was just saying about how Ben Johnson looked kind of how Ben Johnson would say something, but then when JJ threw a pick six, Kevin O'Connell just like, okay.
But I think that kind of speaks to JJ in a sense, and maybe that's, I don't know, it was a bad pick six. I don't, it was a first game. He's been out for a year. I don't know if he's ever going to be a great quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be a good quarterback. But in terms of quarterback development, that is a good sign. Number one, how he bounced back. But most importantly to me, just seeing Kevin O'Connell like not doing that and kind of showing him up in a sense to kind of, breathe a little bit of confidence in him, even if he didn't think he was like that or whatever.
I think Kevin O'Connell himself saw that pick coming in a way. I mean, they sent 7 or 8. I think they sent 7 or 8. They sent the house, and at that point, you sit on the sideline, you're like, shit, you got to expect the worst at that point. I think that's what Kevin O'Connell really did. He was like,
good thing to see, though, is that he did end up changing the protection on it. It appeared that he ended up changing the protection on it and did get the protection right because he did have time.
He did have time. Yeah.
Throw was just a
yeah.
Old boy telegraphed it. He didn't even go. He was actually like shaded to the outside. So as soon as the ball came out, he took it and ran.
Yeah.
So yeah. I got the Falcons in a close one, but getting into our 2 Monday nighters, the first one being Tampa Bay. Obviously, Cass mentioned it earlier, but Tampa Bay versus Houston. 2 teams that could use it. Obviously, Tampa Bay to continue on. Obviously, they're up 1-0 in the division. Continue on with their streak, and obviously, some people think that they could be possible number 1 seed. Houston could get down to. We'll see if the Colts can win, the Jaguars can win. And then if Tennessee can bounce back. So big game. Who you guys got and why?
Yeah, this is a big game. It's a good game, especially with the Bucks coming off the type of performance they had on offense. But I'm actually gonna go with Texans again. I think they're playing against a different defense than the Falcons defense. I really feel like most of the game, we all was making jokes about it, but I mean, it was true. It felt like Baker was just itching to throw an interception. I just feel like that defense from Houston is very opportunistic, and I think they can take more of advantage of it, put a little more pressure on Baker. Falcons, they got a decent pressure on it. I just feel like their defense is obviously more in sync than the Falcons is at this point. And I understand Cash, you're concerned with the offensive line, but I mean, I also seen the Bucks D line not containing like they should be. I'm not saying CJ is obviously not just a fast scrambling quarterback, but he can move, he can get out that pocket, he can do some damage outside that pocket, and I can see that happening a couple of times. The edges breaking down, not containing like they should, and I think the Houston will come out with this W.
I think Houston. I think the snowball, I guess, continues rolling. I think they lose this game. I got Tampa Bay in this one. Look, Tampa Bay, like even throughout, they were able to stop the run against the Atlanta. Vita Vea, I mean, just huge. And if they're able to get that advantage on Houston, to where they make them one-dimensional, then you start to play guys like Kalijah Cansey more to get that interior pressure. You start to see Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick had a good week last week. Nobody really talking about too much about it, but I know he was going up against the backup right tackle or whatever, but he had a really good week. He had a sack. He had a couple of almost sacks. He had one that got called back because of a penalty. So I think he has a huge game this week as well. And I think their defense, Houston's defense is good, very good. But Baker, man, I think, like you said, he was flirting with the interceptions, but he can still put that ball where it needs to be. And I think he has a big game. And Emeka Egbuka, man, you got to tip your cap to the rookie. I think he ends up having a good game as well this week. So I got Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I also have Tampa Bay in this one, and I do think a lot of the Baker Mayfield, he was itching to throw a pick, but I think some of that probably had to do with the makeshift offensive line and being able to trust them and having a little bit more faith. Obviously, having a second week behind that line, or if they switch it back up, we'll see. We're getting some guys back, but having another week behind that line, I think that he'll be a little bit better. And I do think as well, Egbuka would have a big game, not having to go against Stingley, even though he does have a bit of a tough matchup on the other side with Kamari Lassiter. But I do think that he has a good game against him. And Tampa Bay wins, and a big win. Let's say like 28-14.
Okay.
Convincing.
He really want to say 34-17.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised they dropped 30. I'm not gonna lie, Tampa Bay got a good offense, man. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what it looked like when Chris Godwin get back. But we didn't really see Rachaad White get off last week. So pause. We'll see if he does something this week. But getting into the last game of the week, the Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. As I mentioned on my hot seat, watch both teams. Who you guys got and why?
Man, I got the Chargers. I like what I seen from them last week. They seem like they trying to show me something, Jim, we already know he's a good head coach. The Raiders, Gino had a good game last week, but it's just I just don't like their team. It just seemed like something's not right. I can't put my finger on it, but I just think I understand division game. That's why I don't think it's going to be a blowout of any sorts. But I think the Chargers will come in there and thoroughly win the game. They will win the game convincingly, but not in a blowout. It'll be wire to wire.
I'm also going with the Chargers in this one. I think you see a couple of those Gino kind of things that happen. Chargers defense is very opportunistic. I think they'll come away with a pick in this one, a big one, to kind of put it away. I don't think it'll be a close game, but I think the pick will kind of be like a one of those dagger type of things where it's a you down by 2 scores is what it is. I think they contain Ashton Genty. He got his first score last week, but he I guess he didn't really need to do too much when you got your quarterback throwing for 360 yards. So it is what it is. But I'm gonna go Chargers with this one. I'm believing that defense more than that Raiders offense in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna also go the Chargers in this one. I think that the Chargers are gonna be itching to go up 2-0 in this division, and itching to especially if Kansas City has a loss on Sunday. I think that'll give them a boost. So I think that the Chargers are a little bit more developed in terms of their team as opposed to the Raiders. And even though the Raiders had a pretty good showing against the Patriots were also introducing a new head coach. Obviously, a lot of new weapons, a young quarterback that still has to figure it out. So I do think the Chargers get this one. Their defense ends up making a couple plays against Geno. But I do think Geno ends up keeping them in the game, and then ultimately in the end, the Chargers pull it out.
It's a late game for y'all on the East Coast, boy. I say this shit started at 10 o'clock over there. I'm like, sheesh.
I guess folks start complaining because the last year or the last couple of years they've been doing it like an hour into another game, so they trying to.
They did it twice last season. They doing it once this season. Of course, the one where we play Buffalo on Monday night, but like this one, that's a late start though. 10 o'clock on the East Coast. That's on a Monday night. I know you. I know you will, but
I'll be locked in.
That shit is tough though.
It is what it is, but hopefully it's a good one. If it's a snoozer, I might have to catch the replay on that one. But like I said, another good week coming up in the NFL. Week 2 obviously got off to a great start. We will see what happens next week or this weekend. We will catch y'all next week.
Yes, sir.